Yeah. Yeah, I was curious who would be coming here tonight to watch this and who was coming here to watch or see Charlie. So I'm glad most of you guys are here to do both. So why make a film like this, right? Do you know how many documentaries there are about cancer, especially breast cancer? And it's a really saturated, everyone's got a story to share, and a lot of people are eager to do so. But something that's different about this project is instead of being focused on any one particular cancer, this is about the young adult cancer experience, because I found that I was diagnosed with breast cancer at 24, and it's super lonely to go through something like that when you're in this peak social time in your life and you're supposed to be healthy and just the epitome of youth. And then to get a diagnosis like that just completely flipped my world upside down. And then, so I was really isolated from my peers for quite some time, and maybe in some ways still am. I've really learned that, cancer is not like having a broken arm where you set the bone, you fix it, and you move on with your life. This is something that will probably continue to impact me for as long as I get to be here still. But what was really unique was that they would, put me into treatment rooms, and everyone there was my grandparents' age. And so I thought, I don't belong on the outside, and now I guess I don't belong on the inside. And then I would go to doctor's appointments, and I would be in rooms with balloons on the wall and in pediatric rooms. And so really there was just no place for someone like me to belong. And on top of everything else I was going through, as you'll learn from this film, that isolation aspect is pretty insidious. And so once I was connected with other young adults, it was just like what I had been looking for so much. And I found this community of people who also had the same cries that I had, the same challenges I was going through, and also people who really wanted to shift out of that state too. And so the other people in the film, this is much more than my story. You'll meet, they've got huge social media followings now doing patient advocacy work. They have maybe a cancer survivorship fitness studio. I mean, they're just really doing incredible things to try and change this experience. So again, it's much bigger than my own. I hope too that maybe you can see a little bit of someone you know or yourself in it. We really do kind of have a wide range of individuals all throughout different stages, from some of them getting diagnosed up until their death. And unfortunately, we have lost a lot of members of this film, but they surely do continue to inspire me each day, and by the way I choose to show up. Sometimes when we were living in California, I'd be out there pushing one of those manual spinning lawnmowers, the old-fashioned kind, just because I had a body that still could do that, and a really a way to honor some of these people. So yeah, you're about to meet, I think, 8 or 9 of some of my most precious friends, and I look forward to having a discussion with you all afterwards. How's everyone doing? Doing okay? Charlie told me that was a little boring. That was her feedback on it. So hopefully you guys had maybe a different viewing experience. Yeah, thank you again for watching this experience that a lot of us have been through, and I'm sure someone you know personally, if not yourself too. This is a really great time too for us to open it up to discussion, any questions you might have, whether it be about the filming aspect itself to just the experience, things you can do to help people in similar situations. That was my time to share, and now is your time. What made me film it? This was actually done, well, I was sick before social media was really that big, so I think I really missed my moment there. But, just was trying to capture some things and maybe creating little video diaries for myself and realizing how everything resource-wise was geared towards geriatric or pediatric, and there just wasn't much out there for the young adult. And so I felt like capturing as much as I could, and then it eventually grew into this project. And then sometimes it was easier to film a video update and then send it to 50 people instead of having to type things out, just what I could manage energetically. But yeah, and then when it developed into a film project and the full documentary, I just kind of kept talking to more people. I don't have a film background at all, but I had an idea and I connected with people who are skilled with this. And what's really cool about this project too, even down to the music, is everyone involved in it has had a personal experience with cancer, whether it be themselves or a loved one. So our editor, the music was done by a woman whose mother died, and then also one of my 4th grade students who went alongside me when I was going through treatment. And so it was a really personal project for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Sure. Sure. Yeah, the community aspect, I think we're a really social age group as is, and so the most powerful thing for me was when I finally met someone else my age. It's also really nice if you can pair them up with maybe someone who's a little farther along, so that when, the chaos is hitting, maybe you're not pulling each other into it. But, I remember when I went to a survivorship fitness class one time, and someone there told me, I'm 9 years out, like, you will be one day too. And I thought, like, whoa, no way, like, this is gonna get me by 30. I just couldn't believe that you could be 9 years past this. And today, that's exactly what I am, 9.5 years past. And so it's pretty crazy to know that that's possible. So connecting with someone who's been through a similar experience is really great. Also, too, just creating space for someone. I feel like we're really trained, encouraged, and to not sit in our discomfort around situations. So when you see someone suffering, you're always so inclined to try and offer them words, to say something to comfort them. And oftentimes, the best thing to do is just shut your mouth and open your ears and know that I don't have the expectation for you to fix this and make this better, and probably I'm not even asking for that. That was a real learning curve, I know, for my family to see me suffering and want to trying to fix it. And sometimes it was like, I just needed to cry. Like, that's really what I was going for here. And so just being able to be there and really sit in the gutter with someone is pretty powerful, like I said, because it is so lonely. And then also, too, you can be really direct about the help that you can offer, and so that they can decline it. Sometimes when someone says, what can I do for you? You could be like, well, there's a million things that I need done for me. And so being really specific, hey, I'm going to the grocery store today. Can I bring you some meals? Easy one. Something that young adults going through cancer need, like more than anything, honestly, is financial resources. The financial burden that so many of us have is pretty insane. one of the gals in the film, I sometimes ask them, what's your medical debt like? And she says, I can't even look at it because it's too big. Like, I will never be able to own anything. I don't even have a credit score because of this. And that's just her reality. And so, really, that's a great and easy way to. So just ways you can help out. I somehow had the thought to think of all these areas of my life that I had to think about now that I was sick, that I wasn't thinking about before, and was able to delegate that to other people. So I had someone who was in charge of nutrition for me. I had someone who was in charge of movement, sending me positive quotes. I made what was called the Pretty Committee with some of my girlfriends who were into all makeup and sparkly things like that, and they would get me earrings when I was really down, or just come over and do a makeover for me that day or something. So really ways that you can kind of help people also stay connected to who they are outside of the disease. Cancer is so consuming, and it just spills out into everything, and you really do lose your identity. It's been almost a decade struggle for me to come to grips with the fact that I'm not just a cancer diagnosis, and I'm not just a cancer survivor. That used to be how I would introduce myself to someone. And so, ways that you can tie someone back to, a bigger picture of who they are, and infuse some normalcy into their life as much as they're, willing. But yeah, I think bottom line is helping people who are going through it to feel empowered and like they're the ones in control, because ultimately I'm the one who has to live with the decisions that I'm making, the outcomes of them, and so it's a lot easier to do that when you're the one who made the decision than feeling like a bunch of pressure to go one way or the other.
Did you lose purpose?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, yeah, and because what was crazy is that, my 100% purpose became being a patient. Like, that's all I was reduced down to. So then, because of that, when I stopped being a patient, then what was I? As nothing, and sure, maybe I had these other things going for me, but on the outside anyways, but for me, it was totally a facade I was putting on for people. And, just being real with you guys, it wasn't until, I don't know, maybe like 2 years ago where I stopped walking around with this feeling of like, I wish I could just disappear because of everything. And so finally to be able to kind of rebuild myself, my identity, my purpose, and find these things in life again has been the difference for me that, I see a lot of people still struggling with. It's no good when you think the hospital is like your safe place and your home. When I took a long time off of working when I was going through treatments. And when I finally got back there, I remember I sat in the school parking lot, and I was teaching at this really like hippy-dippy, like feeling circle every morning type of school. And the safest place you could be in elementary school too. These kids were just all love. And I sat in the car and cried for 2 hours. When I finally had the courage to walk in the building, I sat in the library and cried with the librarian for like another hour. I don't even know if I ended up getting to my class that day. But to your point, it was so terrifying, and all I wanted to do was just go back to the hospital because that's what I knew. I knew how to do that. I didn't know how to do anything else, though. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, quite frequently too. COVID, we were traveling. We probably spent 1.5 years traveling all over the country and Canada, and doing screenings, and so that was really special, and making sure we got to do one in everyone's hometown, bringing them into it, so there are people, everyone who supported their experience got to be a part of it. I still talk to a lot of them really regularly. Unfortunately, Felicia, the sarcoma, who had the tumor in her jaw, she died about 3 years ago. And then Sam, who had the brain tumor, she also died about 2.5 years ago. And so, yeah, unfortunately, we have, lost a lot of people, and that's kind of the reality. We've had some recurrence, and we've also had a lot of babies, which is really special too. And it's been cool to be a part of that, and a friend, but then also too to be able to provide resources because of what we've generated from this project to like, hey, help pay for fertility treatments for someone, or pay for surgeries and really try to stay involved. I think a lot of these individuals really, put a lot and were vulnerable by sharing their story like this. So it's great to uplift them and give back in those ways. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. You know, it's challenging, especially too, like when you're in that mode. I remember I had a social worker come visit me at all my appointments, and I was very much like, yeah, like, I don't need you, I don't need you, I don't need you, I have friends. And then one day I really needed her. And so, another nice encouragement is that if you can establish a relationship with someone in the mental health field prior to things getting terrible, you don't have to start from the beginning, when everything's exploding. What's been really special for me actually is I've did 8.5 years of, traditional therapy, all different kinds of trauma work to really try to have a shift from how I was feeling. And now I work for a company, it's called Pivot, and that was the first time where I was ever, instead of just like, I'm so sorry what's happened, we see you, we hear you, this is terrible. Finally now someone has said, I'm so sorry what happened, we see you, we hear you, what happened is terrible, and if you don't want to keep feeling this way, we can help you. And so I'm really passionate about the current work I do in my day job now because of the profound impact it's had on my life. I don't walk around feeling anymore like I wish I could just disappear. I didn't know that was suicidal ideation. I thought that was just a feeling I had. I didn't know how severe it was. And so it's really cool to be working for a company now that just does such profound help for people in a really radically different way. And it's just nice that that's out there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Statistically, it's stayed the same. We're still getting really bad late stage diagnoses, like you saw, which is causing higher mortality rates. I think there is some more traction around age-specific resources, which is nice, and so there's louder communities. That's something that's been really cool about social media. A lot of these people, I met them through Facebook, Instagram, and then got to obviously be with them in person. But now that you can become an influencer, there are cancer influencers and figures like that. So there is more support, and social media has been really great for that. Now, has the hospital system changed? No, and it's a painfully slow thing. I'm actually sort of a part of my own little Cinderella story right now. I just signed the NDA yesterday, so I can't tell you what hospital, but I'm a part of building what's called the Cancer Center of the Future. And supposedly, this is going to be a completely different place to get cancer treatments and a much more holistic, person-centered instead of just, you're a patient, you're a number. I'm skeptical, but I'm hopeful, and it feels really great to be a part of it because I know that I can really push for that change. And that's another thing that, this film has presented the opportunity from. And, what they are proposing to do is way different than anyone else has ever done. So I'm hopeful that we're moving in that direction. Right. What's hard to give them credit on the other side, because I used to have a lot of anger at providers, and now I understand that we're asking them to be superhumans. So how can I expect them how to relate as a human, because we don't even give them that opportunity. However, when you receive a diagnosis like this, it's like you could tell me 17 times, you could show me a video, you could show me a million things, and I'm still going to walk out thinking like, what just happened, and not being able to grasp it. And so, if a good doctor can follow up and follow up and follow up and tell you multiple ways and have a good relationship with you, that's great. The problem, though, in my opinion, is not necessarily everything up front, because in some ways reality is just what it is. The issues that I've noticed is in survivorship, because I went to my oncologist, who I had a wonderful experience at my training hospital. They let me have theme parties for every treatment. I mean, I had like 20 people crammed into a hospital room, everyone in costumes. However, the second I was done and I started struggling, and I was done with active treatment, but I was supposed to be on chemo for 10 years, a low-dose chemotherapy, and my life was just falling apart because my body couldn't tolerate it anymore. And she said, well, we saved your life. What more do you want me to do? And, that's something that everyone in that film has heard from their providers too. And so it's really that survivorship component. It's like the fifth step of cancer. We've got treatments down, we've got surgeries down, we have all these advancements in this and testing and genetics, but I don't see enough advancement in survivorship. And so that, I think, is the most delicate time. So even back to your original question, what can I do? When the people stop showing up, when the treatments are over, when they're healthy and life is back to normal, that's kind of when we need that support the most. The term new normal is talked about, and I agree with the nurse. I don't like that term either. It's funny now, the COVID world has taken that term, but it's that's been the lowest time, because I was so embraced and held, and I had this, I felt at home in the hospital, to your point, and then suddenly I had no purpose anymore, and I had to rebuild myself, and everything about me was radically different. And so I would love to see more support for cancer survivors and that ongoing aspect. Right, exactly. Yeah, that early intervention, early detection of any kind, I think, is really important. Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, that is one of the last resources, though, that, they provide, because they're just thinking more about how can we clean the body out of what's happening. But, as my mom mentioned, like, what about the mind and the soul, and what about those aspects? Yeah, and, the solution they gave to me was just they threw more medication on me, and then one day it's like, well, maybe I don't want to be on this forever. Now what am I going to do? And so it's a lot of challenging transition times after the fact. That being said, I do really realize how lucky I am to have an after the fact. It's a challenging road. I have a lot of frustrations. Like, my arm is a daily burden in my life. However, I'm thankful that I get to live with the daily frustration of it, Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Yeah, well, and the other part to that, though, too, I will say, pretty newly into my diagnosis, I read a quote that a cancer survivor is anyone who's currently living with or has beaten cancer. And I remember walking the halls of my school that next day and thinking, like, I hadn't even started treatment yet, and I was like, oh my God, I'm a cancer survivor. Like, those are the most badass people ever. Like, good for me, not knowing what I was about to get into. But yeah, it is an ongoing thing, and probably will continue to be. And I'm really thankful for where I'm at now, because now it's a population that I'm more cautious about associating with, because there are so many people who are in that stage who are just hurting and suffering, and kind of like how I touch on how I was. And it's nice to be able to kind of rise above and really believe that I'm more than that now. But it took a long time, and then now I feel like I can kind of dip my toe in and out a little bit, and sometimes I get pushed in, which I don't like, and it doesn't feel good, and I still certain smells, remind me of getting my port flushed out with saline, and that makes me want to just throw up, or walking back into a hospital. Right now I'm on an every 6 month schedule. and I am all great for 5.5 months, and then things start getting a little weird, and then I get on a plane and I usually just burst into tears, and it all kind of comes back. Or even the month of October, I'm like, oh, I don't care about this anymore, like I don't really identify with the breast cancer community anyways. But there's no denying that October has been an oddly challenging month for me. And why is that? It's like, even if you guys have ever read the book The Body Keeps the Score, it's even if I'm not consciously thinking about it, my body's remembering what happened during certain times. And so, there's a term called scanxiety, and it's like anytime I have to go back in there for something, I just get hit with it all again. And so there is a lot of management about PTSD. I know that cancer survivors have the second highest rates of PTSD to veterans, and so it's a real struggle for sure. Mm-hmm. I always forget too, I hope you guys, there were supposed to be some funny moments of the film. I forgot to preface, like, it's okay to laugh at some of those, but yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, my plunge? Yeah, so I was visiting my parents' lake house, Lake Wildwood, and I was, crispy fall day, and something my husband and I have really taken to in the mornings is an ice bath in the backyard, or getting in the cold lake. And the air was cold, the water was really cold, so cold it burns when you get in. And I'm walking in and I'm thinking about how uncomfortable it's going to be, but then I also think about the fact, like, well, this is going to be a very temporary discomfort. I've been through some pretty challenging things, so I think I can do this. I also like to think about all the people I know who are still really hurting, going through despair, depression, addiction, whatever it might be that they're struggling with, and really like to dedicate that choice that I'm doing to get into them. And what's pretty amazing too is once I get out, I feel like I've conquered the world, can do just about anything. And it's very empowering to do things like that and to be able to. And so, like I said earlier, even with like the push mower, finding little moments like that of unnecessary discomfort, but choosing it anyways to kind of honor myself and other people is pretty powerful for me. Yeah, thank you guys. If you have any additional questions, I'm sure my dad can get you my email address. The website's vinciblethedocumentary.com. We're available on Amazon, and you can always reach out through the website too. But again, thank you so much. Mm-hmm.